Hello, everybody. It's 11:25 a.m. Central Time on the 14th of September, 2022. It's Wednesday here in the United States. Got some breaking news for everybody in case you're not aware. A 7.0 earthquake, a new one, struck in the West Pacific on top of the previous 7.6, which struck several thousand miles over to the west at Papua New Guinea, marked in pink from a day and a half ago. Now a new 7 has struck over here in the West Pacific. This is a big deal. This is the second 7 to strike within 2 days in the region in the West Pacific. Again, the spacing on this is following the plate boundary, which I will show to you now on the USGS plate boundary map over here in the West Pacific, which I show all the time. The plate boundaries, the red lines connecting between the plates. Now here's the big earthquake that just struck here next to New Caledonia, previously yesterday, over to the west at Papua New Guinea, 7.6. Look at the spacing on this, guys. 500 miles is an inch. So we're talking about 500, 1,000, 1,500, almost 2,000 miles apart. So 2,000 miles of the plate boundary broke apart in the past day. In the 7.0 range, first the one over to the west, now the one over to the east. Now I would encourage you all to look at which way the arrows point. So the earthquakes are going the opposite way than the arrows point. Well, what's really going on here is starting back the past week here, a 6.6 to 7.0 earthquake struck in China, killing many people and causing devastating damage. Then an earthquake struck here, 6.5 out in the ocean. Didn't cause too much damage out in Indonesia, thank goodness. And a 7.6 struck here. Now those two earthquakes, the one in Indonesia and the one here that you can see on the screen now at Papua New Guinea, those struck within hours of each other on the same day, a day ago. So first China, then the 7.6 in Papua New Guinea, then Indonesia, now this. It's almost like a backwards game of leapfrog. So really the way I'm looking at it is the entire area from China back across down through Indonesia and back all the way over to New Caledonia all broke apart in the past week. Again, from China to Indonesia to Papua New Guinea to New Caledonia. Look at the spacing on that and you'll start to see that it's somewhat equal spacing for these extremely large earthquakes that struck over the past week. Can't ignore that in conjunction with the deep earthquakes which are taking place down below the West Pacific. We have deep earthquake activity coming up down below the West Pacific, spreading out and away from where the deep earthquakes are taking place. And the deep earthquakes happen from here at Indonesia, up to here at Japan, back down to here at Tonga, and then, of course, in between, that's where our 7s and 6s all took place. So that's a lot of movement for a few days' time, for less than a week. Got on and talked about this over the past several days. The potential to really go up a whole notch from where we were over the past several months. And where were we over the last several months? We were in the 6.0 range. Now, when I made my last video last week, talking about the potential to go up into the 7 and plus range, it was based upon two things that were happening. There was another 7, a rare 7, that struck right over here, Mid-Atlantic Ridge, just east of the letter X. When that happened, we talked about the potential for the whole planet to start to show activity because both sides of the planet were moving on near 7.0 basis. Well, one side was 6 over here. The other side was 6.9 to 7 over here. And you can go watch my videos over on my YouTube channel from just last week to hear me talk about what we'd be looking for this week. Not bragging, I just have to tell you. Now, speaking of just having to tell you, I don't know if anybody else is going to, the west coast of the United States got hit with a mid-range 4, 4.4 to 4.5. They've now downgraded it to 4.3, whatever. Santa Rosa, California. Now, this is going right into Clear Lake Volcano. Also, something else is there, which I think everybody should probably see. I don't know if you're going to buy into this or even want to look into this. All I can tell you is what I found. The earthquake epicenter coming in right here. See where this little policeman place mark I put there? Look what it says. 17-mile-long hidden star fort pinnacle here, spreading north to Clear Lake. Going from where I placed this little policeman, you can see a triangular-like shape into the mountains themselves. This is not from imagery or anything. And it goes in a perfect 17-mile long on each arm of this. And it goes back down to Simi and cuts over this way. You see it? That's not from imagery, guys. And it goes all the way down here. Now, these are 2 national parks, and it cuts back across this way. Now, what this is a star fort shape. Comes down, goes in. Here, let me draw it for you so you can really see what I'm talking about. Starting here at the pinnacle. I'm not exaggerating. This is really, really here in the topography. I already measured it last night. I'm just doing a rough measure now. 17 miles from here to here. 17 miles from here to here. It's not up for debate. And again, it really is. It's perfectly 17 miles. Then it cuts in at an angle this way and cuts in at an angle this way. It is. It's a star fort that backs up to, or at least one pinnacle of it, ancient, that backs up to Clear Lake. It's 17 miles long, one of the biggest structures on the planet. Anyway, that's amazing that the earthquake came in right at the tip of there, and that's what drew my eye to that. I did not find that until last night when the earthquake hit at the pinnacle tip of there. So we have a mid-range fort, the pinnacle tip of a star fort that really is just a series of stepping stone path earthquakes that goes down all the way across into Central America, where the bigger of the bunch is striking down here at the plate boundary, down in South Central America. Okay, anyway. Back over to the West Pacific, a 7 striking. Cannot ignore this. We're going to watch for additional 7.0 activity to take place in 2 different locations, or near 7.0 level activity, upper 6, low 7. One across the Pacific, over here, South America, Chile. So I'm going to watch South America right along the coast for the potential of compensation equal to the size of what's striking in the West Pacific. Central America should see mid-range 6 to 6.5, come in here in the middle of this hot mess in between all the current 4s and 5s. That pretty much puts Nicaragua, Costa Rica, Panama as far north as Guatemala. Guatemala is right here where the letter V is. That's where, Fuego volcano is. And if you want to go check out a video on my community page over on YouTube, you're going to see a bunch of people vying for the Darwin Award. Up there at the peak of the volcano watching the blasts. And a big blast came out, go figure, and it came right over them or right next to them. They all start running. Word to the wise, guys. Don't climb an active volcano to see the blast. You could probably see it from pretty far away. Send a drone. Anyway, so check California off the list. We have 3 more, maybe even 4 more spots to move on land in the United States. That includes the California-Nevada border. That includes Southern California from Lompoc over to Ridgecrest. That also includes California at the northern border with Oregon right by Shasta. And then the other location out in the ocean. I'm already thinking it already struck. Look, do you think the coast of Canada and the coast of the Pacific Northwest remains quiet when the rest of the planet goes into overdrive and everybody else on the planet gets hit? Or do you think they're hiding the earthquakes? Come on, guys. Which is it? Or are there no earthquakes in the Northwest all of a sudden? When I say all of a sudden, 6 years. 6 years of no earthquakes up in the Northwest. You know why, right? I won't get into it now, but let me just tell you something. Somebody got into it with somebody 6 years ago, and the somebody who got into it with somebody, the one somebody was the network who runs the whole operation up here for reporting the earthquakes. That other somebody was me. And they came after me, guys. Called for my arrest. Let's get to sip my coffee while you think about that one. Oh, Dutch Sense needs to be arrested for reporting on earthquakes and debunking us. I debunked the professionals. They said earthquakes couldn't be forecast. I decided to set out to prove that it could be. And, it resulted in my shutdown. Hey, speaking of getting shut down and not get shut down, how about the earthquake that got reported over here at Ukraine? Well, I don't know. It disappeared, but it was a 4.2. Then, subsequently, a new 4.2 was reported right over here on the plate boundary in Poland. That's on top of the previous 4.2 that struck over here at Romania that I made note of in my last video. So, last video talked about 4.2 in Romania, then I mentioned Ukraine and Poland, and then my people over here at Holland. Okay, well, who got hit? Romania, Ukraine, Poland. The only people left to get hit now is Holland. And that's all just for the previous forecast. We have a new forecast coming in here for Europe over the next few days for the potential to go potentially up into the 6.0 level. Down here right next to Turkey, going into Cyprus, just north of Israel or west of Syria. We're right there. You see it, the red line. That's where we're going to watch for the first round of activity to come in. Then we're going to look for 5.0 level activity to come into central Italy, going over into the Adriatic Sea, maybe as far east as the arrow over at Bosnia, but I'm looking more like on the plate boundary right here at Italy. Again, it's a matter of 200 miles I'm trying to get it down to. So if you're in Europe, look at the screen. 4.2 and 4.2. I'm showing you everything 3.0 and greater. Oh, hold on. Here's everything 3.0 and greater. So it's the same sized earthquakes going around the outside edge of the plate again. This is my biggest discovery aside from the deep earthquakes and shallower, larger earthquakes. That earthquakes go around the plates, following the craton edges, and we get the same size quakes within a hair of a point of each other, going around all sides of the plate like a river. And you can see, or like a river splitting in two directions at a fork in the river, and you can see which direction it's preferring when the earthquakes start to go around the plate. And you get 4.2s on the north side and 3-point-somethings on the south. But then compensation takes place, and then the south side moves, pretty much like the north side. It's almost like a tilting seesaw on a children's playground. Anyway, getting back to it, 4.2s going around Europe right now, today, as I'm talking, within the past few hours. And then back across over into Iran. It got hit yesterday with a 4.8. China's still moving, of course, on the plate boundary. We would expect that. But back to the big quake. Look, I already issued a warning over on my community page, which I should probably show you my community page. I don't know. Should I? Let's just jump over there and take a quick look. Let's go over to my community page. And, well, is it going to even open, right? My goodness, where's my page? These are all my subscriptions or something. Okay, there we go. All right, there's my page. So you click on the community tab here if you're not familiar with it, and you'll see posts which I've been making. I post some music for, general consumption, but then you're going to see stuff like this. Channel member posts for people who are channel members, and other posts for the public. And I would just tell everybody, you need to be prepared. We need to watch around the Pacific between our current sets of earthquakes. And I already named the countries, and we go all the way out, even not in the Pacific, over to Iran. Over to Iran that way, up to the north, across Japan this way, across over into Central and South America this way, and the west coast of the United States going into Canada. Look, none of us are immune when the plate starts to go into overdrive. And it's going into overdrive 2 sevens in the last day. Months without it, and then all of a sudden, 7s return, and a bunch of new deep earthquakes. I have not even touched on the solar activity that precedes all this. People asking me if I know about solar. Oh, I don't know. Do I? Well, let me tell you something. I'm the guy who found that solar flares showed up on Mimic, M-I-M-I-C, the microwave background imagery. They shut down Mimic because of what I found. They said it was impossible to see it and stuff. Anyway, Mimic, the microwave background imagery for precipitation, was showing arrival of solar flares when they're hitting Earth. Charged particles hitting Earth from a big blast, a coronal mass ejection, or a solar flare when charged particles actually hit the Earth. It would make the upper ionosphere reflective. And it would reflect microwaves. Even though it wasn't supposed to see this, the microwave background imagery was showing it. When the wave would hit the particles, you'd see which side of the Earth it hit on when the Earth was facing the sun, when the particles arrived. It was that detailed. Anyway, they said it was just a glitch or some shit and shut it off and rewrote the whole code for it to omit these things. That's University of Wisconsin, a bunch of scam artists, in my opinion. Certainly hiding it. They certainly know. University of Wisconsin? Oh, yeah, they know. They know. Mimic was showing all kinds of stuff, not just arrival of solar flares. all types of reflective events in the ionosphere and that reflect microwaves. Turns out shortwave created plasmas, or, well, high-frequency created plasmas, were also reflecting microwaves. And we were able to see facilities like HAARP in operation. Now you know why they shut it down. Rewrote the code. Anyway, back to it, guys. Solar flares show before large earthquake activity. Also, strong solar wind, and also coronal mass ejections facing Earth. It turns out it's the bombardment of the solar wind filled with charged particles that then compresses the Earth's magnetosphere, which then affects the core of the Earth, because the core of the Earth is a giant plasma torch powered by the sun, fed energy by the poles, captured by the Earth's electromagnetic field. And I think the core of the Earth is rotating. I can't prove it, but I think it is. And I think it's rotating as fast as the solar wind, and that the solar wind and the core of the Earth speed are tied to each other. Like a giant pinwheel blowing in the wind, the magnetosphere turned and moved at the speed of the solar wind when the solar wind arrives. And so when the solar wind picks up and it's full of charged particles, it's like a storm filled with rain. It's not just strong wind, it's strong wind with rain. The charged particles being the rain. And all that hitting the Earth, buffeting the Earth. And then that goes down to the core of the Earth electrically. And within a couple days of the arrival of the charged particles, we start to see a bunch of new deep earthquakes and big earthquakes and big eruptions as the pressure or the heat and energy rises up from the core of the Earth, up and out and away. And that's what we're seeing with the quakes. So yes, solar does have an effect. Again, coronal holes with strong solar wind, charged particle events like solar flares facing Earth, and coronal mass ejection, filament ruptures and so forth, that also send charged particles towards Earth. And you'll know there's charged particles heading towards Earth when you see them physically on something like SOHO, the blue view. The blue view on SOHO starts getting all grainy and you start seeing all these little things fly by. Those are actual charged particles that are being picked up on the way the camera views. Amazing, right? Back to the whole update point here. 7.0 level activity cannot be dismissed. We have to watch between all the current larger earthquakes for additional large earthquake activity to take place. And then we just will look between our sevens. Let's look at the halfway point between the sevens, see where it goes. Who does that put in the mix? Well, let's see. We got our 7.6 over at Papua New Guinea. We have our 7.0 down next to New Caledonia, where the two rings overlap. Puts us right here in one of the more famous earthquake zones on the planet. This is Solomon Islands, west of Vanuatu, east of Solomon Islands, Solomon Sea. That's the first spot I'll watch. Then we have to warn the people in Indonesia. We have to warn the people in Japan. So there's like 3 or 4 warned spots for potential 7.0 activity. And it's most likely all of them will be hit by something significant, especially over in the East Pacific, where there's potential for compensation greater to or equal in size to what's happening in the West Pacific. So if we take these and add them together, equals 7.7. And that's assuming the USGS is reporting them right. So we would look for something like an upper 7 to strike in South America, going as far north as Chile, with the border with Peru. I mean, the only other thing that I could be missing on this is that up north, I mean, it's clustering out pretty hard, and that up north it would strike. I'd be 50-50 on this, and that if I'm looking to the south and it's tilting to the north and I don't realize that, or I'm not seeing that, even though there are a bunch of earthquakes here, I already issued the warning down to the south. Maybe I'm being stubborn, right? Like maybe I'm just not, maybe I'm trying to stick to my forecast from a few days ago instead of seeing what's actually happening here. On the north side, we're moving pretty heavy in 5.2. South side, it's gone pretty quiet. And right in the middle here, in between our two sets of quakes, that's where I issued the warning for a potential 7. So it's gone quiet to the south, and it's moving to the north. I would think it's going to break on the south side. It's going to keep the forecast the way it is right now. And here, between where both earthquakes struck, look, 7.0 is going to be striking here in between these two quakes, most likely within the next few days. Over to the west, I would maybe take it just a slight step down, a half magnitude. So if we're at like 7.5, I would look for a 6.9 to strike over here in Indonesia. And we're going to go right back down between our current sets of large quakes. That puts us right in here at Java. So Java, look, it's on the way. You already got a 6 over to your west, over at Sumatra. You have a 7 over to your east. Think of this like sandwiching. You're a sandwich. You're sandwiched between a 7.6 and a 6.6 over in China. And we're seeing an additional spread take place. Same for up here in Japan. Japan, you're on the menu for a large earthquake very soon. A whole magnitude larger than what I was looking for previously. So I was looking for, what was I looking for? 6.5? 7.5. We have to take it up a notch. It's not dissipating. The energy is not dissipating, and it's not leaving the West Pacific. It's going all the way from China back over to Tonga, and you can see where it's stuck. So it's going to try and make its way out. It's going to follow the plate boundary. So let's go back over to the plate boundary map from the USGS. Again, we're stuck from China all the way back to Tonga with 7.0 range. It's going to try to make a way to the north, and it's going to try and make a way to the west. It's going to try and make a way to the east. It's going to try to escape the energy. Hence my warnings for all three sides. And the super suspicious activity not out here off the West Coast. And I say not out here off the West Coast. Super suspicious activity that isn't happening out there off the West Coast. That's the suspect part. Come on, man. What did I tell you? I literally told you 2 days ago they wouldn't report the earthquake out in the ocean, but they would on land. And we start to see, I go, we don't even need them to report it out there. I'm looking for a 5.9. It's been months since they reported anything out there, and they're all just worried about, again, the public and all this crap. When I said they won't be able to hide the earthquakes on land that people feel. And then all of a sudden, boom, 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 we start moving on land. Well, I'm starting to think that the earthquake struck out in the ocean. They just didn't report it again. Again, they can't have it. You know why? They said it doesn't happen. So they can't have it. You know what I mean? There are no earthquakes out there out on the coast before there's any activity on the land, they said. So if there is one, they're not going to report it. You know what I mean? And they stopped the minute we got into the big argument about it. So that's the weird part. 6 years ago, they stopped reporting the quakes when I got into the big debate with the professor who was attacking me publicly online. If you don't know, I am not trying to rant, but I have to tell the people, new people this. You need to know this. 6 or 7, now almost 7 years ago, I found a professor who runs the network up here bashing me publicly without even, people had to come over and tell me. They were using their public page on the college page in PNSN, Pacific Northwest Seismic Network. They were using their assets to attack me. And I was like, what is this? And long story short, I had issued a warning for a 6 out in the ocean out here, which is pretty rare. I don't normally issue warnings for 6s out here in the ocean. Right out here at the pinnacle tip of the Juan de Fuca is where I warned the 6. The professor weighed in and said there's so many 6s that strike out there every week or month or whatever that forecasting would be like shooting fish in a barrel. The next day, maybe 2 days later, 5.9 hit right there. Okay. Then, after that, he said I just got lucky. Like shooting fish in a barrel. Well, it's been 6 years, dude. How many 6s have struck out here in the last 6 years? 2? Okay, so the point is that they said it was like shooting fish in a barrel, and they happen every month. And then I forecast one, and all of a sudden, gone. And you can go back and look and check the feeds. You'll see some 4s and maybe a few 5s, and that's it. For 6 freaking years. Ever since the big make 'em look foolish moment. All right? That's a big deal for me. And people thought I was exaggerating. As a matter of fact, people even called me a conspiracy theorist for saying anything about it. And I asked them, I go, do you think that it's just stopped out here off the coast? For years on end? Do you? Or do you think they're just not reporting them? Like when a tree falls in the woods and nobody's there to hear it, does it make a sound? And the answer is no. A sound is something that's heard by someone. But I propose to you it generates an audio wave, regardless of whether or not somebody hears it. That audio wave is going to go and bounce off the trees and the rocks and everything. A bird might hear it. An animal might hear it. All right, enough jib-jab on that. Let's get back to the whole point of this video. Big movements taking place. You need to have a plan. Especially if you're living on the west coast of the United States, Central America, South America. Also, Japan, no duh, right? Indonesia, no duh, right? But more areas where people don't really think about it much. Over in the Mideast. Over in Turkey, it's Cyprus. people think about it a lot in Italy, but it's almost like you think about it a lot, but your professionals never tell you when to watch. So what good is it? You have to know when to watch. It's like a flood. I mean, it's great to be prepared for a flood, but if you're walking around every day with a life jacket on, it's going to get pretty mundane, and you'll just get laissez-faire. You'll just get, lackadaisical about watching. So you can see when the flow starts to arrive. Like now. When you start to see 4.2s go across all Europe in a day, in the exact areas that we would expect when a flow is going around something. When a flow is going around something, you know there's a flow. And when the flow starts to increase, you know that it's increasing. This is so basic, but I think everybody made earthquake forecasting overcomplicated. They were looking for some super complex crap, and it turns out most natural processes are fairly simple. Like the tides. Now forecasting the tides can be hard, but the process itself is somewhat simple to understand. And same for earthquakes. But then it gets back to what's causing them. And then that gets into the greater wave that's spreading out. That there's a force that causes the earthquakes, guys. It's a separate force. It's a wave of some kind. A very low frequency, ultra low frequency. I don't know whether it's VLF, ULF, extremely low frequency, ELF. I don't know which it is. All I know is the spacing on the quakes is hundreds to thousands of miles apart. It's somewhat equally spaced, going through an uneven tank, which it's containing the wave. And the tank is what I've been showing you the whole update, and for years, the tanks are the red lines containing the wave. When the wave hits a plate, the plate absorbs the energy, the wave, and then the wave goes around the plate on the inside of the plate, the craton edges, like here in Europe or over here in the United States. Following the craton edges perfectly, like a waveguide. And that's a big deal too. So, let's recap. Final for the United States. We're going to watch for 3 to 4 sets of more 4s. California, Nevada border, Southern California from Lompoc over to Ridgecrest, Northern California up at the Shasta region right at Oregon, and then out off the coast. Out off the coast, it kind of doesn't matter to me. I think it already hit, may or may not have. I don't know. We'll never know. Until those jerks just finally stop being druids and start being scientists again. If they ever were. Okay. No offense to my druid viewers, you know what I mean. Just had to take a jab. It's the first thing I grab. What do you want me to do? Call them Jesuits? I can say that. I went to a Jesuit high school. Got kicked out. I was a Protestant going to a Jesuit high school. Of course I'm going to get kicked out. You're not a right fit for the school. Yeah, no shit, Sherlock. I'm going to public school now. You guys all go become lawyers. I'm going to go discover earthquake forecasting. You can all attack me later. All right, anyway. Have an earthquake plan, will you? Enough harping. Will you please do your part, which is to have an earthquake plan? It's pretty basic. Take shelter underneath something. Protect yourself from falling things. Your family, of course, you make sure that they know where to go when an earthquake hits, underneath the table or desk. If you're not confident in your structure, or let's say you're in a cinder block, stone stacked building with no reinforcement, you might need an exit plan, but if you're going outside in an earthquake, it can actually even be more dangerous than being inside. Outside, you have to know all your variables. Or inside, you can kind of see. Outside, you could be 50, 100 feet up. Something could be falling down. You don't even catch it until it literally hits you. So just make sure you know your surroundings. Outside can also be dangerous because of, water main breaks, sewer line breaks, power lines, trees, you name it outside. So I would suggest, again, knowing what kind of building that you're going to be in. And if if you're at work or something, you need to think about these things. You don't have to really run through and do an earthquake drill where you get underneath the desk exactly yourself, but you could just think about it, what you're going to do when an earthquake strikes. Then that gets into emergency kit and preparedness. Do you have an emergency kit? Do you have the ability to help yourself and other people after an earthquake or a disaster of any kind? Food, water, clothes, socks, even just the basic survival items. You might even need a form of communication and a form of power generation. Yeah, a little small solar panel, the pocket kind, or extra batteries. Look, I mean, everybody's going to be a little different, but you could at least take the steps of getting your clothes and your shoes together into a bag. So if you're caught in the middle of the night, you're not in your pajamas or less running around outside. Just little things like that. A set of shoes by the side of your bed. I say this all the time. Somebody's going to actually do this. Put a set of shoes or hard-bottom slippers by the side of their bed. And then if anything happens, you can at least put on your shoes. If there's broken glass on the floor and it's the middle of the night and the power's out, good luck. You're going to wish you had shoes on the side of your bed. You'll be like, damn it, Dutch. All the trolls, they'll be like, oh, well, stop clocks right twice a day, I guess, Dutch. My biggest troll's got a set of shoes by the side of his bed. He's like, yeah, that's the one piece of advice Dutch gave that was good. Whatever. All right. Much love, guys. I'm saving this as a video. We're going to upload it to YouTube. Watch it back in a premiere. This is not really a forecast. This is just an update. But I hope you see that we're really going through it right now compared to where we were just a week or two ago. Go watch my video from a week or two ago. I was talking about watching for this to happen. Now you can hear it in my voice. It's happened. Okay, peace out.